So I got an unusual one today. I normally play FPS. Like, what do I even know about reviewing a MOBA or an MMO mouse? Kind of feels like bringing an SUV with third row seating to a Formula One race. But I like side buttons. I use my side buttons. This thing has a lot of side buttons. So if the idea of an FPS player reviewing a mouse that is clearly intended for something different entirely, if that triggers you, get lost. Don't do that to yourself. Don't get yourself all worked up today. But if you're curious to see what that looks like, stick around as I go humbly into battle behind the wheel of the latest version of the Scimitar. You ready? Let's go! Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seed Tech, and today we're checking out the latest version of the Scimitar. This is the RGB Elite from Corsair. Retailing for $79.99 US, the Scimitar design is nothing new. I think we saw the first iteration of this mouse hit the market in like late 2015, early 2016. It's very much designed for MOBA and MMOs, which should be obvious by the cluster of no less than 12 side buttons. It's a hefty fella, not unusually long at about 118 millimeters, but super wide at 71 millimeters at the grip and a height of just under 42 millimeters. It weighs in at a beefy 119 grams on my scale. Even with a hand measurement of 20.5 by 10.5 centimeters, it still pretty much begs for a palm grip. You can claw this, I suppose, but it really lends itself to like a hybrid claw palm or just a flat out palm grip. What makes this mouse more accessible for different size hands is the shorter length and this curvature. It looks like a big mouse, but the outside edge of that swoops in and leaves a little more room in the palm than you'd expect. The other thing is this side keypad. It actually adjusts forward and backwards by 8 millimeters, something you'll accomplish with this included Allen key. So when this thing locks up, it's really sturdy. It never gives you the impression that it's an adjustable panel at all. Once you lock it in, it feels as if the mouse was physically molded into whatever position you pick. Just about every material one could use to construct a mouse is present here. Aluminum frame, gloss plastic accents, and the coating is matte soft touch, which I hardly ever see anymore because unfortunately, it has a tendency to break down and kind of flake off over time. That's not saying this mouse will definitely do that. It's just been my experience with mice that have similar coatings. Gloss plastic, as we know, shows fingerprints and everything else. The soft touch doesn't show fingerprints per se, but it does show oil. We've also got a textured section on the outside where the ring and the pinky finger lay. It doesn't appear to be a glued on section either. It's thick and it looks like it's integrated into the frame. The DPI buttons are up top, they're glossy, and despite being large, are out of the way, and they can be reassigned if need be. Scroll wheel has a great rubber texture coating. I like how it's designed to look like it's floating in between the two triggers. Good tactility, and it's quiet with small movements, but it gets noisy quick with faster movements. Force to depress is pretty firm. The whole build feels really stout and reinforced like it could take some abuse. It is 24 steps. The only weird omission for a mouse that prides itself on flexibility is that it lacks tilt scroll. And that might be a deal breaker for those of you who are looking at this mouse specifically as an editing mouse, which is a shame because the shape, the comfort, the feature set, the incredible amount of side buttons makes this a really strong contender for an editing mouse. Mouse 1 and 2 are both Omron 50mm switches. The triggers themselves feel pretty good, not really as snappy or as crisp as I'd like. Due to the kind of wafer-thin design, they do exhibit both pre- and post-travel, with post-travel being more noticeable, particularly with ADS on Mouse 2. As for the cable, we have a stiff braided cable here, which again is not something I've seen in a while. It seems durable, I'll give it that, but I would automatically put this in a bungee. And the glides aren't anything to write home about either. They work. I'd like to see them a bit thicker and cover a greater surface area. I'd like to see this one extend all the way to the corner, and this one be a single glide across the rear of the mouse. Okay, let's talk about these side buttons. They feel really good, actually. They are mechanical as well. Great tactile feedback, not just in actuation, but also in the surface design and shape to help you navigate around. Obviously, I'm not used to a setup like this at all, but I was really surprised at how fast I started to learn my way around. Primarily, I play Modern Warfare, and there are a couple things I have to have on my side buttons, and a couple things I'd like to have, but I don't ever seem to have room because I usually only get 2 side buttons. One is crouch or slide, mandatory. The other is my tactical equipment, usually stim in my case, which I used to heal after a gunfight, again, mandatory. Stuff I'd like to have, reload for sure. Lethal item because I constantly accidentally throw Simtex instead of reloading. But a big one, a weird one that you don't really think about is jump, spacebar, because after a few hours of doing this with my thumb, this part of my hand starts to get fatigued. Having a vertical stack of side buttons for crouch, slide, jump, and full prone opens up a much more athletic playstyle. And if I slap sprint over there as well as opposed to the left shift, I really never have to involve my left hand with doing anything but WASD. Twitch shooters are really all muscle memory, but even going in on this new setup, here's the outcome of my first match. Not a record breaker, but not bad considering every button I used short of ADS and fire was remapped. And that's using palm grip, which I never do, and a weight of about 120 grams versus 74 grams on my main mouse, and a stiff braided cable, so way outside my comfort zone. Sensor here is 18,000 DPI. This is a Pixart 3391, which is based on the 3389, and I didn't have any issue with sensor performance at all. The biggest challenge for me was that I kept wanting to pick it up, and it's just not really designed for that, between the weight and the keypad. Like in palm with my thumb totally flat, I could pick it up without actuating the buttons, but if I was in a grip where it was just the tip, it was too slippery without pushing in. After running this mouse for a few hours, I definitely feel like there's a conversation in here somewhere about a heavier mouse providing stability and the potential for a mouse to be too light. That's a video for a different day. You also do have 4 RGB zones, and it does utilize IQ software if you need it, mostly to configure the RGB or to assign macros to the buttons. It does have profile support for 3 profiles as well, but you can simply run it right out of the box and forego IQ software altogether, which is usually how I recommend treating peripheral support software. Okay, so $79.99. I think that's a solid price for what's on offer here. If I can make things happen in Twitch FPS with this thing, I can only surmise that a MOBA or MMO player would have a great time with this, especially if you also casually play multiplayer or single player shooters like The Division, where you have a lot of abilities. I love that it's so comfortable. For palm grip, I don't really like it for any other grip style. The movable keypad is ingenious, and the shape really lends itself to being accessible to a wide range of hands. Unfortunately, right hand only. It's really versatile though, and would make a solid editing mouse as well, thanks to all the assignability, but I do wish we had tilt scroll here. And it feels like structurally, it's built really solid. Other aspects of the mouse honestly feel pretty dated, and that's not just coming from an FPS perspective. The soft touch coating needs to go, the old school braided cable, the gloss plastic accents, the glides could use some reworking and updating, and it doesn't appear that it's a big enough step forward from the previous versions if you already own those. But for its intended purpose, I think it hits the mark. There's not too many competing mice out there with this level of functionality. It's a great design. I'd just like to see it get a real, proper, modernized refresh. As always, links down below for everything we talked about today. Any questions, hit me in the comments or drop by the Discord. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button. And until next time, stay up.